Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Wilder for this installation of our Science Fiction Against the Margin series. Just out of curiosity, how many of you all have been to one of them already, one of the SFAMs? Awesome. Okay, great. So you know a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. Um, Let me just thank some people, and then I'll introduce the films. I should also introduce myself. My name is Beandrea July. I'm a film programmer here at the Archive, and this series is part of PST Art and Science Collide, presented by the Getty, and we're so happy to be part of this program and thank the Getty for its generous support. We also want to thank our community partner tonight, UCLA Alumni Association. And all of the screenings at the archive are free thanks to the support of an anonymous donor. So we want to give them thanks as well. When the curators for this series envisioned science fiction against the margins, they started during COVID, culling together ideas and creative inspiration largely in isolation, connecting through technology. Film programming, filmmaking, and archiving are all incredibly collaborative efforts, so it's no wonder that after considering over 300 works that pushed against the boundaries of science fiction, the moving images selected often reflected stories that reimagine the hero. And tonight's film definitely are part of that. I also want to just let you know about a couple things that are coming up. So we have just 2 Science Fiction Against the Margins programs left. One is on Friday, December 6th. It's called Earthly Visions, and it's a series of films grappling with the natural world. And Saturday, December 14th is closing night, and it's with the London-based Palestinian filmmaker Larissa Sansour. And also, if you feel like filling your whole weekend with archival programming, tomorrow and Sunday, my colleague Paul Malcolm is presenting a weekend with the celebrated filmmaker David LeBrun, who's a UCLA alum, and he will be in person for a Q&A both days. So those are just a couple things to put on your radar. Also want to thank the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, who've been big collaborators on this series, supporting this public program, and they'll be contributing to the forthcoming anthology of original scholarship accompanying Science Fiction Against the Margins. I want to thank the archive staff for all they do, as well as the fantastic curators for the series, who I think at least one of them is here tonight, Nicole Ucedo, and also Professor Sean Noriega, as well as Maya Montanez Smukler. And finally, I'd also like to thank the projection team and the house staff here tonight that make all these screenings possible. All right, so let's get to the matter of the films. We have 2 great films for you tonight, a short film and a feature. The first is Pumzi, a film out of Kenya, from the filmmaker Wanuri Kayu. I'm saying that wrong. Sorry to that name. This is a really interesting film. I tend to be brief in my introductions, but I think what really binds the themes of this short with the feature together also from tonight is you have 2 really strong female protagonists who are fighting for what they believe in. Pumzi is that version out of Kenya, and then we have Night Raiders, which is an amazing film. And we have the screenwriter and filmmaker here with us tonight, Danis Goulet, and she will be here for a Q&A afterward with Professor Kathleen McHugh of the Theater and Television School, and we're really excited about that, so stick around if you can. Yes, and the runtime for the short is 21 minutes. I always like to say this for those who, like me, always have to go to the bathroom. And the feature is 101 minutes, so you could probably sneak out there if you need to. So without further ado, thank you all for being here and enjoy the films. And we'll see you back here for the Q&A afterwards. So we're going to have a Q&A, and I'm just going to read our introductions of our presenter, and our filmmaker. So Danis Goulet's films have screened at festivals around the world, including Sundance, the Berlin International Film Festival, MoMA, and the Toronto International Film Festival. In 2021, her award-winning feature, Night Raiders, premiered at Berlin and TIFF, where Danis received a TIFF Tribute Award. For television, Danis has recently directed the acclaimed FX series Reservation Dogs, which I know you all have heard of. And she is Cree Métis, originally from northern Saskatchewan in Canada. Let's give it up for her. And I will also bring to the stage Kathleen McHugh, who will be conducting the Q&A. She is a UCLA professor of English and Cinema and Media Studies. She's published 2 monographs, Jane Campion and The American Domesticity, from a how-to manual to Hollywood melodrama. She's also published articles on U.S. and South Korean film, melodrama, as well as transnational media, film feminisms, and film and TV genres. Her current project considers women's anger as a creative force in contemporary media genres. The science fiction Against the Margins project gave her the opportunity to write on a favorite sci-fi novel, Octavia Butler's Kindred, and to research why Butler's groundbreaking vision took 43 years to be adapted to the screen despite its deeply cinematic qualities. So, round of applause for Danis and Kathleen.
Thank you. Känse, kita tamsket wow.
Hi, everyone. So, Danis, I just saw your film for the second time, and it's so powerful in terms of place and environment. And I was wondering if you could start us off by talking about what you were thinking about when you wrote the film, and the sense of the world you're bringing us into.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. I started writing it, I think, in about 2014. And about that time, I think all of my work deals with the impact of colonization on Indigenous people and how that's been felt in our families. And one of the biggest things in Canada was the residential school system, which was a system that took Indigenous children away from their families for 7 generations of Indigenous families in Canada, and it was enforced by law. And I wanted to talk about the impact of that system, but I wanted to do it in a way that sort of thought about the cycles of what happens going into the future. And I was also thinking about the time about demographics and how it's changing in the US, and how I just sort of thought, there's definitely going to be a white supremacist backlash coming. And I was writing it in the Obama years. So I just felt like I wanted to bring all of these things into one space.
So it does take place in the United States?
No, it actually takes place in a post-Civil War North America, where the map of North America has been redrawn and Canada is now under occupation. And the occupying power is the US, but none of these things are named. But yeah, it takes place kind of in probably like, I imagined it to be kind of like near Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. I don't know why.
Right. So I read somewhere that with this film you started working in genre, and that was really an experience that opened things up for you. And why sci-fi? And what were you able to do or think about?
I feel like I made one genre film before this, and I think before that I just made kind of straight up dramas, but there was something about genre, which I fell into accidentally when I was invited to do this short film commission. And I did a similar kind of like near future dystopian film. And it just opened up all of this freedom and possibility to talk about the things that we need to talk about, and to do it really loudly. Like there's something about being freed up from just like total reality to just say like, I can actually say whatever I want in this space, and it's really amazing. And I was thinking a lot about what Indigenous people have had to bear on the back of the founding of Canada and the U.S. And, the beginning of the film where there's a voiceover from the elder, that was actually added very late in the film. It wasn't originally written into the script. And it starts with, we knew that they would come for us again because they had before, and we tried to warn the others that they would come too. And the others is everyone else, because Indigenous people have already experienced a total takeover of our land, and the dislocation of our people, and the violent takeover of this land. And the them that I'm talking about are the people that just took power here in the US. And so these things are cyclical. And I wrote this fake timeline into the future, like just imagining what would happen, because the film is set in 2042. And in 2024, in the fake timeline that I had written, I looked back on my notes a little while ago, and I saw that I had written that there would be an attempted assassination of the president, and also that there would be a mass deportation program. And it's not to say that, oh my God, like I predicted it. It's more that this is predictable. The way that this works is predictable. And it goes in cycles. And, this is a really important moment right now. It's a really, really important, now that we're all sober and we know what we're staring down, it is like time to, as the elder says, the only thing we can do is do this together.
So I was wondering if you could talk about the different power of Niska and Wansis, because it seems as if the story has two protagonists. We think it's Niska, and then her daughter emerges with this extraordinary power. So can you talk about that and what you were thinking about
Yeah, I think I was thinking about intergenerational dynamics, because in our communities we talk about intergenerational trauma. So, maybe if you yourself did not go to residential school, but your parent did or your grandparent did, you're still going to be living with the legacy of that. But I also think that there's something that changes from each generation to the next, and that the children often in younger generations don't have quite the same baggage. And I think Niska is a person who lives in fight or flight mode. She's in survival mode. And I think the film's asking, what does it mean not just to survive, but to thrive? And Wasis doesn't have the same damage. She didn't live through, and this is a post-Civil War North America as well, so that's the context. And Niska, the mother, has lived through that, and Wasis hasn't. They've fled to the land, and they've lived there alone. And so really it's about that Wasis has an openness to life, and she doesn't necessarily have a magical power. She just communicates. And like in my home community, my dad's home community is a place called Kaminstagomanagoskak, and everyone back home can call to animals. Like they all do moose calls and all kinds of duck calls, and I was thinking about that skill set as being one of, my dad grew up on the land hunting and trapping, and the skill set's amazing. And Wasis has that skill set, and also because she doesn't have the baggage of thinking the drones are a threat, she also just has an openness to them. And I often go to the language when I'm looking for clues about how to approach things. And, there's this trope in sci-fi that, as soon as the AI or like the bots become sentient, they're going to come and kill us. And I was thinking about that trope, and then I went to the language to find out, like, what would we think of that? And Cree has this kind of, it's not a binary, but there is a system of animate and inanimate. And in our language, the rocks are regarded as living, And so I thought, well, if the rocks are regarded as living, then maybe the machines would also be regarded as living because they're made of rocks and minerals. And then what would that world view mean? And to Wasis as a character, it means that she regards that with respect and with care. And then the machines, respond to her in kind because they've only ever been treated as subservient tools of the occupying force. And then that's why they begin to behave like organic, birds. And in that, it's almost like they evolve in that moment of her kind of regard and communication to them.
Following on that comment about language, I wonder if you could talk about the sound design and all the different things that went into that, because I was really noticing it watching the film this time.
Yeah, we worked with this amazing sound design couple in New Zealand because the film was a co-production with New Zealand, and there's a Māori character in there played by Alex Tarrant, and I was thinking a lot about kind of global Indigenous solidarity, and one of the things I did to research the film was to go to Standing Rock when that was happening, and whoa, speaking of sound.
Are we having a fire drill? Oh my goodness.
If we don't get to keep talking, thank you everybody so much. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're
Everyone.
back. And we were talking about sound design. Right, and look what happened. But
The sound design all happened down in New Zealand in the pandemic.
right. Yeah. So
And it was beautiful.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So my last question is about the things that influenced you, or you were thinking about. Were there films, or we were talking about Afrofuturism? Just if you could just talk a little bit about the things that were inspiring you when you.
Yeah, I think there has been a movement under the umbrella term of Indigenous futurism that I think kind of came in a wave after Afrofuturism, and the two are sort of in conversation with one another. And I wasn't necessarily thinking of that. I was just sort of in my own little realm writing the film, but I started to kind of tap into what these movements kind of talk about as I was writing it. And for myself, I don't know, I just think about it very simply. Like, I don't know that much about sort of futurism as a theory, more so that, we as Indigenous people were not meant to exist in the future. We never show up in futuristic spaces or in sci-fi spaces. And for us to declare that we have a future is a subversive act, and then to place us into the actual future, even if it's imagined, and even if the future isn't any better, maybe even be worse in a post-Civil War North America, that we are still here, and that saying that, it's almost like a declaration of we have always been here, we are still here, and we will always be here. So in the midst of these times and in the times of a genocide, to say that we, in a larger sense, in the way we express solidarity with others that are, at the hands of occupying forces, the way we express our solidarity with Palestine is so critical. Because again, we need to do it together. Like, none of us can stand alone in this.
Okay, thank you. So, questions? Are there questions for Danis? There we go. Yes.
I was curious about Wasisi's perspective and whether you saw her
Yeah, so the question was Wasis, the young girl, do I imagine that she, became jaded, I guess, and sort of like would eventually, I guess, have a negative attitude, like be damaged in the same way? And I don't think, when each generation changes to the next, I really do think something different happens. Like, even if they still have to go up against, an occupying force, I think that the baggage is just different. And I'd actually written an imaginary scene that never ended up. It was just like something that ended up in the parking lot. And it was, she was a resistance fighter in her early 20s, and she was commanding a fleet of drones. So it's like, you can imagine, what she, like a kind of power that she has stepped into at the very end of the movie and where that might go,
Yes, Alex.
Thank you. I'll ask a question about the title because I was reading it both ways. Like the Night Raiders are the occupying force, but that the Night Raiders are the occupying force, but the Night Raiders are also the indigenous resistance.
That's really cool.
And what does the night symbolize? Like, there's a power in the night, in the darkness, and the ability to, kind of move undetected, unless, of course, one is detected by drones or lights or whatever. So I was just wondering, like, the title. The title is, gives it that sci-fi feel, but I'm just curious, how you would unpack it.
Yeah, I think I thought of the Night Raiders as the indigenous raiders that break into the academies at night and steal their children back. And I guess I was kind of playing with the trope in, like I think we've heard stories of different nations that would raid other camps. And there's the depiction of this in some Hollywood movies, but in Hollywood, especially in the John Wayne era of, indigenous representation, it was really damaging. I mean, we were always just there to be killed. We were savages. We were bloodthirsty. And so it's like the idea of a sneaky raider going into a camp at night, which kind of stokes like white settler fear. I almost wanted to just turn that around and be like, what if you could raid for good? And that those skills are amazing. And to be subversive in a world that's under total surveillance is actually it's like you go in the cloak of darkness so that you're not seen. So that's kind of, I think, where the title was there for a long time. I almost can't remember where it came from anymore.
Other questions?
Was it also intentional on your part to make the leaders tend to all be female?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that question. I wanted to really express just my own reverence for matriarchal leadership, especially in different indigenous communities. And women in many communities have played essential roles in resistance. And I just wanted to acknowledge and honor that. And also in my own family, my grandmother passed away when my dad was 16, so I sort of think that there's something where I'm always missing that kind of matriarchal figure, even though I had lots of aunties and other relatives. It's like I sort of really think just personally there's something there. Sure.
One's about how he found the actors, and the other one is about the humor. It's little bits of humor, sprinkled in with all of the action.
Yeah, I think humor is about survival, but it's also just like joy and vibrancy. And in the midst of the worst situations, I think humor is vital to kind of our humanity. And also, it's culturally specific. Like, if I go home to a funeral, you will hear like louder than loud laughter of everybody just like having, you know, there's just a lot of joy even in hard situations. And I think that that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I wanted to find little places to put that into the film. And I can't remember what your other question.
Cast.
Oh, yeah. So I knew Elmaya, the lead, Niska. She is a filmmaker in her own right. And yeah, she was incredible in the audition. When we did callbacks, I think I cried in the later audition she did. She was so vulnerable and yet had this toughness about her. And then Gail Maurice, the Cree-speaking leader of the camp, is a friend and also an amazing filmmaker. And I'd known her for years and knew that she was an incredible actor, but also just a fluent Cree speaker. And it's a lot easier when you have that built in as opposed to have to teach someone how to speak. And then Brooklyn, who plays Wasis, was, we looked all over North America at hundreds of young people. We had casting folks in Canada and the US, and we found her in Canada, actually, when we were in prep, so kind of late into the process. And she came in to read for the Victoria role, which is the person who's her enemy within the school. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh my God, get her in here. We got to read her for Wasis.
And there was a question in the back.
I have more of a comment than a question. I just really liked the exploration of the artificial intelligence machines that I think most modern sci-fi kind of misses on is the notion of what life is worthy of our respect. And that can be branched out to beyond AI, you know, to what life is worthy of respect for an audience, for a life that they're not familiar with. I think I just really love that aspect of it.
Thank you so much.
Me asking, how did Amanda Plummer get involved with this script?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I thought, yay,
The
great.
U.S. casting director thought she had the idea, and then we just called her and said if she would do it, and she did. Yeah, it was super cool.
Okay, so I have a last question,
Okay.
which is, I'm wondering if you could talk about what you're working on now.
Yeah, sure. I have a TV pilot in development that's based on a podcast called Stolen, which won a Pulitzer Prize, and it's the second season of it, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's by a Cree journalist named Connie Walker, and it is about her own family's experience in residential schools, and it is totally riveting and really moving and beautiful. And then I'm also writing another feature that is about a woman in a village in an unnamed place and time who begins to get visitations from a monster/being that is telling her to rebel against the small village that she lives in. And it's kind of about rage.
We bonded at dinner over this.
Yes, because you're writing about women's rage. I appreciate that a lot.
Well, okay, well, thank you all for coming, and Danis, thank you for the brilliant film.
Kinanas kong tinawao.